Photosynthesis, the magic transformation of sun into sugar. I know, I wish we could do that too. A very common type of organism that undergoes photosynthesis are plants. But what exactly is the process of photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is the transformation of light energy into chemical energy stored within glucose bonds, which then provides energy to the organism through the process of cellular respiration, producing ATP. Along with water and CO2, energy from the sun is transformed into glucose and oxygen to create a food source for the given organism. For most people in the world, photosynthesis may only be associated with organisms of the plant kingdom. However, the origin of photosynthetic organisms begin with simpler forms of life, algae and diatoms, in a truly interesting process.
So, our first question is, could you explain to us what algae and diatoms are?
Algae are kind of a bunch of different organisms, many of which are totally invisible to us because they're microscopic, and only a handful of which are big enough that we can actually see them without magnification. Those include things like red algae, brown algae, golden brown algae, and green algae. Diatoms are one group of algae which are all microscopic, and they represent another monophyletic grouping, meaning they're all related to each other, which are not closely related to the plants, but they've developed photosynthesis by consuming other photosynthetic organisms.
What exactly is a cyanobacteria? As you said, that is what they engulf to become photosynthetic.
So what cyanobacteria are, in the modern sense, is a grouping of bacteria that can photosynthesize using chlorophyll or chlorophyll-like molecules. And the kind of photosynthesis that they do is a fairly sophisticated type of photosynthesis that it was not thought to be the first type of photosynthesis that evolved. Probably the earliest types of photosynthesis were done by organisms that were more like purple sulfur bacteria. Purple sulfur bacteria photosynthesize using pigments that are purple in color, which is why they're purple sulfur bacteria. They also photosynthesize in a way that doesn't release oxygen. And it's thought that one hypothesis called the purple earth hypothesis suggests that first there were the purple sulfur bacteria that were absorbing a lot of high energy light, and then cyanobacteria came along later, kind of took the type of photosynthesis that was being done by the purple sulfur bacteria, and through a few mutations, a few modifications, developed pigments that were a little bit more complex, a lot more complex, and those pigments were the first things like chlorophyll.
So, what does this mean? To start off, we have an Asgard archaea and an alpha proteobacteria, and when they join together, the alpha proteobacteria evolves into what we now know as the mitochondria inside the first eukaryote. So, where do we go from here? There are 4 clades we will now explore, which are Excavata, SAR, Archaeplacida, and Uniconta. Archaeplacida has engulfed cyanobacteria and ended up with chloroplasts similarly to what happened earlier. But how did the others end up with these chloroplasts? We will now describe the process. So, the SAR clade saw that the Archaeplacida had them, and so, because of this, they decided to engulf the whole cell, then discard what they did not need. And this is how the others ended up with chloroplasts and how photosynthesis has spread around. Due to this process, photosynthesis has now become a polyphyletic trait found in different lineages across living things. As noted, the first came through primary endosymbiosis to create chlorophyll-containing organisms. However, other organisms soon found out about this crazy useful process and decided to do it for themselves. But this time they just engulfed an organism which could already photosynthesize, which is now known as secondary endosymbiosis. This led to different lineages having photosynthesis without being related through a common ancestor, thus having photosynthesis be a polyphyletic character found in a variety of organisms. Overall, photosynthesis is a truly remarkable process that keeps the world that we know going. Through photosynthetic organisms releasing oxygen, all other organisms keep thriving and release the carbon dioxide that they need. It is because of these photosynthesizers that we all get to live the oxygenated life required, and ultimately, it is their awesome power that makes all of our lives possible.